This video is not about self-harm. It's about a legal process in Canada that provides mercy for the terminally ill, with a few kinks that need to be worked out. However, if you are considering self-harm, please know there are options. Reach out to support systems in your area, get help, and stay alive. Alright? Okay, let's do this thing. I was getting my hair cut one time, and you know how the hairdresser likes to make small talk, so they asked if I had any kids, and I said, half jokingly, "Nah, I guess I'm kind of selfish like that, you know, I don't want kids because I don't want to spend my money on them." And she goes, "I think having kids is selfish. You're having them for yourself. No one ever asked them if they wanted to be born." And just to see where this would go, I said, "Yeah, you know what, that's an interesting thought experiment. If you had some form of sentience before you were born, and you could sort of see what was going on Earth, would you want to be born?" And dead serious, she looks at me and says, "I wouldn't." Now, typically, I don't want someone who doesn't value life holding sharp objects around me, but luckily for her, she lives in Canada, where, as you know, she can end it anytime she wants. At least, that's what a lot of Americans think. I've been seeing an increase in talk about Canada's MAID program. That's Medical Assistance in Dying, mostly from people who don't know the actual facts. And I thought, let's talk about what's actually happening. And yes, highlight some of the bad examples. So in Canada, the thing Dr. Kevorkian went to jail for is now legal. Has been since 2016. If you're suffering, you can't do anything about it, and you want to go out on your own terms instead of choking on your own tumors or whatever, you can apply for a medically assisted exit from this mortal realm. This has led to memes like this one. "Ow, this is gonna need stitches." In America, that'll be $58,000. In the UK, "I can help you in 38 months. And in Canada, "Kill yourself." It's equally making fun of every system, at least. Like, obviously, it doesn't cost $58,000 in the US for stitches. It only costs a scant $6,000, according to this NPR article from 2021. Man, why are these memes so hyperbolic, right? I also saw this the other day, a video titled, "Euthanasia has become leading cause of death in Canada." Picture of Trudeau smirking like he's the one on the other end of the needle. Now, in 2021, roughly 10,000 Canadians opted for the old chemical checkout. In 2020, I guess they haven't finished counting all the bodies for 2021, 307,000 Canadians in total died. 81,000 people died of malignant neoplasms. That's a nice way of saying the big C. No, not that one, the other one. 53,000 people died of heart disease. Thanks, McDonald's. 16,000 died of COVID. If you want to call those flu deaths, you go right ahead. It's still number 3. Then, unintentional injuries at number 4 with 15,000. Cerebrovascular diseases, that's your Alzheimer's and, I forget what else. That was the 5th leading cause of death at 13,000. So, we're still outside the top 5. Now, this doesn't actually list assisted suicides or MAID. It lists actual suicides, which there were 3,800 of those in 2020. So I'm guessing they counted the medical assisted suicides as whatever the patient had. Because either way, these people were going to die. Yeah, but not next week. Sure. But they probably weren't RSVPing for any weddings too far in advance either. Checking off whether they like chicken or fish in their feeding tube. Anyway, there's been a lot of fear-mongering about this topic because of a small handful of, really shitty stories. This was a pretty high-profile one in early 2022. Here's the headline. "Woman with disabilities nears medically assisted death after futile bid for affordable housing." That's what people read, and they go, "So Canada's gonna kill a woman because she's poor? It's eugenics!" But let's go a little deeper than the headline. I know, asking a lot, but let's pretend we're not on Twitter right now, and we'll react to a whole story. The woman, 31, it's gonna get worse before it gets better, has something called multiple chemical sensitivities. She has actual life-threatening allergic reactions that require EpiPens if she's anywhere near cigarette smoke, laundry chemicals, and air fresheners. She's so sensitive to these that even if her neighbors use any of these things, it causes her rashes and difficulty breathing. if you did your laundry next to her, she could die. And the only time that she's had some relief is when people raise money to help her stay at a wheelchair-accessible hotel near a ravine with clean air. Oh, did I mention she's also got a spinal cord injury and is wheelchair-bound? And the news article mentions other chronic illnesses. If you're wondering if anyone's doing anything for her, the government gives her about $1,200 a month, which, oh, she lives in Toronto, so that's not enough to live on. Not even close. And I'm guessing she doesn't have enough saved up to move to somewhere that would be cheaper and likely have cleaner air than Toronto. So, she chose to apply for MAID, saying that this is no way to live. People act like Trudeau came knocking on her door, cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Hey, heard you can't take a little smoke. I guess we gotta kill ya. I don't know what to tell ya. In America, this person would potentially just end up homeless, suffering and dying on the streets. That's somehow better than being able to go out on your own terms? And to give you some idea of how long the process takes, the story was written in April. There was another story in November, 7 months later, saying that she's in the final stages of application. You don't just pop down to the hospital and go, "One youthy smoothie, please." There's another story about a dude who applied for MAID, and then the news went national, and he ended up getting $60,000 from a GoFundMe campaign, so he decided not to go through with it. Similar story, he was disabled, couldn't find affordable housing, and was fairly certain he'd die on the streets in his condition, so he'd rather go his own way. You know, like the Fleetwood Mac song says. And in both of these cases, nothing had been approved yet. As of writing this, we actually don't know if anyone would have finally approved them. But you know why these stories are so public? Because they're so rare. Yeah, I bet you can find me 10 stories that make this program sound pretty bad. I got 10,000 stories for you. In 2021, 65% of people who used the program had some sort of untreatable cancer. 43% had heart, lung, or brain issues that were terminal. 10% had multiple comorbidities. 1,000 of the 10,000 had a fucking buffet of terminal illnesses. Thousands of people suffering in hospitals, in pain, struggling to breathe, but let them suffer because a guy in St. Catharines and a woman in Toronto wanted to take this way out and some shady doctor went, okay, I'll sign off on that, fuck it. Or you got the stories where, yeah, someone should get fired. Canadian Paralympian Christine Gauthier put in a request to have a wheelchair lift installed in her home, and the Veterans Affairs Office sent her a letter saying, hey, just so you know, we could offer you MAID. Hey, I need a way to get upstairs in my house. Well, I can offer you something that'll take you all the way upstairs, right to the gates if you know what I mean. Yeah, that's fucked up. Apparently it was one employee who had also told 5 other veterans, you know, death's always an option. And he got suspended, and rightfully so. Fire that guy. But with all this, I'm still a supporter of the program. To qualify, you have to submit a written request, be of sound mental capacity to make your own healthcare decisions, and have a serious and incurable illness, and be in an advanced state of irreversible decline, and be enduring intolerable physical or psychological suffering. Opponents of this are like, poor people are going to hospitals in Canada and they're just putting them down because it's cheaper than treating them. Or, you gotta wait 6 months for a doctor, but you can get same-day assisted suicide. But this is not true at all. In fact, they said that 13.2%, or over 1,600 people last year who applied for MAID, didn't get it because, whoops, they died before their application could be processed. 1,600 people died waiting to die quicker. But some asshole at the VA's office told a woman who wanted a chairlift that they'd give her the Kevorkian cocktail, so scrap the whole program. These are the same people, by the way, who would see a stat like 279 kids have been shot to death on school property in the 10-year period that begins with Sandy Hook, and go, yeah, but guns should still be legal. 5 people get a pamphlet that says, have you thought about killing yourself? In their mailbox, and every terminal cancer patient should have an option taken away from them. Yes, if there are doctors doing this unethically, take away their licenses. And I'm not sure I agree with this next step, but later this year, they're going to start approving people who have mental illnesses instead of just physical ones. Hard to make a case that you're sound of mind to give consent to die when your reason for doing so is that you're not sound of mind. And if your whole thing is, I don't care if every single one of them is suffering and terminal. That's not what God wants. Suicide is a sin. Let me tell you something. If what God wants is for people to suffer, to spend their last days, weeks, months in agonizing pain, hoping, wishing, praying for a natural end that just won't come fast enough, then God is a bigger sadist than anyone ever featured on a true crime podcast. What's up, my blood-loving bitches? Today we're talking about a guy who forces millions of innocent men, women, and even children to suffer to death every single year. It's God. But now you know a few more actual facts, not just nonsense being tweeted by idiots that are parroting other goofs. Now, if you're still like, God, who would want to live in such a dystopian future? Guess who might have a solution for ya?